This is the Fearless Experience with Brendan P. Keegan. Conversations with leaders who provide valuable, candid insights from their journeys and share their secrets to what made them successful and fearless.
Today's fearless leader is Ryan Stana. Now, Ryan is the force behind RWS Global, the world leader in live events around the world in many different places, and we're going to hear about them today. Ryan grew the company literally from nothing to the worldwide leader. Now, he's done that through acquisitions, he's done that through grit and hard work, he's done it through resiliency, and we're going to talk about a lot of those things today. His journey delivers the kind of leadership lessons that we talk about here on the Fearless Experience. He's been bold, he's built fast, he's scaled, and he's remained true to himself. So Ryan, welcome to the Fearless Experience.
Thank you so much for having me, Brendan.
Yeah, I'm excited. And a lot of times when I meet an entrepreneur like yourself, like a true entrepreneur, I kind of like to go back in time and understand your journey.
Sure.
And from what I understand, you grew up in an entrepreneurial family with parents that were entrepreneurs. So like, did that have an impact on you? Because, some kids grow up with parents that are doctors and that's the last thing they want to do. So you grew up with parents that were entrepreneurs and a family of entrepreneurs. So can you tell us how that made an impact on you?
Sure. So I grew up in a small town outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania called Greensburg, PA. And my parents really taught me that anything is possible with hard work. And when I was a kid, one day I said, I want to be a teacher. And they literally built me a schoolhouse in our guest house at our home. And I think that kind of belief in the possibility shaped me. And to this day, I really work hard. I stay grounded and I never put myself on a pedestal. I'm not above any job. And when I see trash on the ground, when I'm walking at an event site, I pick it up. And we're a team and I never expect anyone to do work that I wouldn't do myself. And early on in my career, I really felt pressure to play the part of a New York socialite because I was coming from this small town in Pennsylvania. And a key moment that I will never forget is my grandmother pulled me aside and said, "You will never have full success in your life until you are proud of where you've come from." And she couldn't be more right in that advice that she gave me. And I wouldn't say I rejected my parents' lessons while growing up, but I did learn that what works in a mom and pop food business doesn't automatically translate to a large scale global production firm. And scaling really requires new systems, new thinking, and creative ways to make the client really feel uniquely supported. But everything about my success was shaped by those words my grandmother said to me early on in my career.
So stay true to yourself. I'm hearing stay humble.
Yes.
Feet on the ground, the kind of guy that, picks up trash, at his own events.
Yes.
Doesn't view that. And I think one of the first things you said there was hard work.
Yeah.
And, and that's probably something that you saw in your family, you emulated, and you probably, see in your company, people emulating it from you.
Yeah. It's funny when you hear people or friends of mine that say, you know what, I'm giving up my 9 to 5. I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I am going to set my own schedule and it's going to be so much easier. I will say you are delusional because that is not the situation if you want to be a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, what I'd say is you do get to set your own hours. You do get to be your own boss, but your number of hours that you work most likely increases.
100%.
But hey, if that's the freedom that you seek or the vision that you seek, it is the right way. If you are seeking it so you can have, afternoons off or mornings off or something, then that it is quite.
And I think being an entrepreneur, the one thing I can say is your highs are the highest highs you will ever have in your life. But the lows are the lowest lows you can ever have in your life. So you have to know that when you're going for that leniency in your schedule, you also know that that leniency can bring you the greatest joys. It can also bring you the greatest hardships, and you have to be prepared for that.
Well, let's talk about one of your greatest joys. Let's go back to when you were just turning legal to buy alcohol. You were 21 and
Yep.
you did a pitch contest.
Yep.
It was a six-figure pitch contest, from what I understand,
Yes.
and you won. So tell us, like, how did you beat more seasoned entrepreneurs, executives? Like, how did you go about winning a pitch competition at 21?
Yeah, so that RFP process that I went into at 21 really had to do with two things. I understood that passion and dedication matter just as much as experience. And I also learned that relationships mean everything, because that client I worked with before when I was working for another production firm. And I convinced that client that I would treat their project with an unmatched level of attention, an unmatched level of creativity and commitment. I wasn't chasing a paycheck or bragging rights to get it on, that on my website. I genuinely cared about the quality. I cared about the innovation and the outcome. And I think that authenticity comes through in the pitch. And still to this day, it sets me apart from competitors who were simply going through the motions. I love what I do, and that has never left me in the 23 years of this business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I also heard a story, and I got to see if this is true, that the first company you launched, you were taking some pictures maybe for a website or social media, and you had some of your roommates kind of stand in the background as though they were like your team. Uh,
Well,
is that true? Or tell me a little bit about that. But
yeah, so that's a little bit false, but I'll clarify it to
okay,
you.
go ahead.
So when I was working for a production company, I was making $600 a week. I loved that production company. And I thought they were so creative. But the one thing they were lacking was they were lacking the operations and business side. They would get a contract for $200,000 and spend $250,000. And I thought, this is going to go nowhere fast. And one day I called my dad and I said, Dad, I hate this job. I don't really want to do it anymore. I think they're very creative, but it's lacking structure. And at that moment, I learned any successful business has to have 50% creativity and 50% operations knowledge, because someone that is a great operator might not be creative, and someone that's a great creative might not be operational driven. And I knew the success in my business was having 50-50 split. And so my dad said, hey, Ryan, why don't you start your own business today? And I literally walked in, quit the job, walked to my apartment in New York City, and I said to my roommates, I'm opening RWS Global in the corner of this apartment, and I need to make it sound like people work there. So when the phone rings, I need you to answer the phone to say, hi, RWS Global. And every time you do that, I'll deduct money from the utility bills. And that is how RWS Global began, by that very way of having creative thinking, but also operationally strong. And when I sent out an email to announce my departure from that other production firm, I said, hey, I'm no longer working at this company. I am now working for RWS Global. I did not say I was the owner, because who was going to trust a 21-year-old at the time? So I said I was working for that company, and that's what opened the doors to get that first RFP that I went in and pitched for.
So you talk about creativity and operations, which are the business skills that you need. But when I listen to you, what I hear is scrappiness and confidence. So, maybe some intangibles, if you will, versus the tangibles. So where did you get the scrappiness? Where did you get the confidence? And it sounds like maybe your dad, instilled some confidence in you, like start a business, like just somebody believing in you to do that. But the scrappiness to, hey, we're doing it today, we're doing it here, and I'm going to deduct off your utility bills. That's kind of scrappy. But then the confidence that we're going to build something. We're going to build something great.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it comes from the power of dedication. That scrappy start really made me laser focused on hiring people who are passionate and all in what we're doing. We're in the business of creating unforgettable experiences. And that really requires a team that genuinely cares. And I have zero tolerance for people who are not fully invested. I really focus on hiring skilled people for each role and then get out of their way. That early chapter taught me that credibility comes from showing up, doing the work, and trusting talented people to do what they do best. And finally, in all of this, is my parents taught me everything and anything is possible. And them having that belief is what made me confident still to this day as a 40-some-year-old man.
Awesome. So let me flip from your entrepreneurial journey and let's actually talk about RWS.
Yep.
So tell the audience what the company specifically does, because you do live entertainment across an incredibly broad spectrum. But in your words, tell us what you do.
Yes, we are the world leader in groundbreaking live moments across entertainment and sports. So essentially what we do, we create customized guest experiences spanning theatrical productions, live events, immersive destinations, multimedia, consumer products, and more. And that is through a global footprint across 7 headquarters across the world and a vast talent pipeline that is providing those experiences for our clients. That is what we do in a nutshell.
So I know some of your industries, you do cruise lines, you do theme parks.
Yes.
Last year I was in Abu Dhabi for the Grand Prix that they just this past weekend, and you're at Ferrari World.
Yes, Ferrari. We actually designed Ferrari World Abu Dhabi.
That's what I thought. And you've done stuff for Nickelodeon Playtime.
Yes.
So like what leadership skill do you rely on, or skills do you rely on to be able to go across those very, very different platforms and be able to bring the same level of creativity to bear?
Yeah, I mean, integration and that large platform really requires clear communication, really detailed planning, and also a deep respect for cultures you're bringing together. So really with that is we're collaborating closely with each partner to design these transformative experiences that resonate across those cultures. So we rely on our proven approach to craft memorable journeys that meet evolving guest expectations and integrating storytelling, technology, and brand IP. And you're working on building a staff and team members to deliver that. And then you're also working on what is that creative vision to deliver that.
So how do you as the CEO keep your execution and delivery consistent? Because doing something in Abu Dhabi and Ferrari World, and doing something at sea on a cruise line, doing something in an American theme park, like those are, although some of the creativity may be similar, executing those is tremendously different. So how do you ensure that when someone hires RWS Global, like they get that consistent execution?
So again, respect for culture is number one. So no matter what system process you have in place, you must respect the culture that you're putting that experience within. Okay. But then it's aligning technology, it's aligning processes and teams across time zones is very complex. So I really rely heavily on transparent communication and collaborative leadership. You can't integrate companies and integrate projects from a distance. You have to be present, you have to be engaged, and most importantly, really willing to listen to those different areas and different projects. And one of the biggest mistakes founders make is assuming that an acquisition of a company or an acquisition of a project will naturally blend into their existing structure. Let me be clear, and I have the scars to prove it. It won't. You need really intentional alignment. Last year, like this is an example, last year after our third major acquisition in the last 3 years, we undertook a company-wide reorganization. We united all these subsidiaries into one global organization. And what that did was it eliminated redundancies and built a structure to be able to scale to unbelievable heights. And we also, from doing that, saw opportunities to improve operational excellence in streamlining those processes. So we leveraged new technology, we invested in team member training and development, and integration is about really elevating the entire organization. So we really focused on how do we integrate and how do we place systems and processes as the forefront of the business, because that allows us to scale for growth.
So, as you've scaled RWS Global, you've done it organically, and then you've done it through acquisitions.
Yeah.
How do you identify, acquisitions? I've done a number of acquisitions in my career, and one thing I get at, or I speak with entrepreneurs about is, make sure to acquire the right companies. You can acquire a wrong company because of culture or various things. But so how do you identify in due diligence on a company and know this is going to work? So how do you identify them?
Yeah. So one way is through the knowledge of the industry you're in.
Mhm.
You know the companies that align with you or don't, and you know their reputation. So that is one bucket. Now, as we have grown as a company, a major part of my job every day is mergers and acquisitions, going through companies that are reaching out to us on a daily basis to be acquired. Those points are number one, does it fit our business model moving forward? So we now have a clear structure of 6 departments. If those businesses do not fall into those 6 departments, I immediately know we're not moving forward with that. So that is checkpoint number 1. Checkpoint number 2, before we get to the financials, is how does that company's culture meet our company's culture? So before we even get to the financials, I'm sitting having a breakfast with the founder, with the CEO, saying, how do we align as people? And a great checkpoint for me is I expect everyone to be 10 minutes early to a meeting. Timeliness is everything. If that founder is walking in on the start of the hour or 10 minutes after, that's checked off my list because they know that's an important meeting to be at. You were late to that meeting. And I don't care if there's traffic. I don't care if there's holdups. You are prepping to be there ahead of time. So that is part of a founder and a leader's job, to be on time, not only for your clients, not only for possible acquirers, but for your team members. So if they're late, I check that off my list, but we have to jive from a culture. And then the third is your legal and financial due diligence. Do they have the right money to build and scale forwards? And I'm probably going through a month, 15 to 20 possible companies. And out of those 15 to 20, maybe 3 of them progress to the front line to then go to our board for further conversation.
Ah, that's great. So I love how you seem very process driven in that's that operational side.
Yes.
The big ideas for the live entertainment, the creative, but the legal diligence, the financial diligence, the culture diligence, if you will, even though that's less tangible than maybe the financial diligence, very, very process driven.
Yes.
All right. So I want to flip to a third area and in getting ready for today, one thing that came out from everything I read about you, everything I saw was you're a passionate guy. And I actually saw where you said, passion, the right passion is almost better than an MBA.
Yes.
And you've used the word passion, half a dozen times just in our 20, 30 minutes together. So where does your passion come from? And what would you tell our listening audience, our watching audience on passion?
So once the stakes of livelihood and reputational risk become real, passion without structure becomes truly a liability. And I believe that's where leadership begins. And passion is really the engine that drives us forward. But then that operational side that I keep talking about, that discipline, is what keeps the day-to-day running. And at RWS Global, we're operators, and those operators need high standards, they need clear systems, and a team that can support the vision with precision. So that is my view on passion, but passion without structure becomes a liability.
Hey, could you just walk us through, and maybe you've seen it actually be a liability, maybe for yourself or for a company or for somebody else. So maybe to one of our younger listeners out there that, is working hard and their passion's keeping them going. I think the lesson from you is make sure you put some guardrails on your passion, make sure you put some operational, excellence, kind of wrap your passion in process and analytics or whatever. But can you just maybe just tell us a short story on where you saw passion just maybe go too far?
Yeah, I think passion, again, can be dangerous in a lot of ways. And what I always state from passion is make sure you take that passion and place goals. So a lot of entrepreneurs that come to me for advice, they're going to say to me, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to conquer this. And I say, okay, what is your first step to do that? And they don't know. So I live by one of my items that I tell all my team members as a time and action. You put together a time and action on how you're going to accomplish those goals. So if your goal is to make $100,000 in revenue by the end of the year, from January to December, all your goals should go towards hitting that $100,000. If you don't do that, you have no pathway. So I see a lot of times that people have a love for an art form, or people have a love for a sector of a business, but they don't know how to put the steps in process. And without the steps, you never have that success. So you'll always hear me say, Brendan, what's your time and action to get that goal accomplished? And that's the nomenclature we use here at RWS to say, how's that goal going to get accomplished? And that's how I can relate that to.
So now I think another one of your beliefs and your leadership philosophies and underpinnings, and we kind of hit on this earlier, is that, being an entrepreneur is really 24/7. And, but how do you avoid burnout? How do you stay away from that becoming a liability, that it hurts the business? Like, how do you manage it 24/7, live it, love it, but not burn out from it? How do you combat that?
Yeah, so there's two items to speak through on this. Is one, work-life balance. So every business goes through team members saying we don't have enough work-life balance. In the last year, I have taken a stance to say you are in charge of your own work-life balance. I do not know what is a balance to you. And I only come to that conclusion in the last year because I tried to do a work-life balance where I would go on vacation and I would shut off all my devices. And I felt like a cigarette addict. I was like, where are my devices? I need them, because that is balance to me. Me checking my email in the morning, me checking my email in the evening, that is balance. Off balance to me is not doing that ever. So the first thing is, I believe each individual has to come up with a work-life balance for themselves. So I like to work, so I balance that during the week. But also the second item is one day during the week, no matter where I am in the world, I have to have a lazy day. And I don't disrupt anything. If I'm a leader, I want to take that personal day to unplug, and that's my choice. And I sit and watch Bravo TV and those terrible reality shows, and my mind just goes to blob. Yeah. And that also allows me time to realign. And my team also knows that no matter what, I'm always reachable, because that is my job as a leader. to be reachable if something's truly urgent. But that weekly reset makes me sharper. It makes me more present and more effective when it comes to Monday morning.
Yeah, you actually hit on my next question, because I did hear about your one lazy day.
Yeah, I
And
love a lazy day.
and have you seen people like emulate that? Have you seen some of your team members take that same approach, or friends and or family or anything?
No, I don't know if anyone's followed my lazy day, and I think some people would think I never have a lazy day.
Yeah.
But I have made a conscious effort on my social media to show that I do have these lazy days, so people don't think I'm a robot. Because I
Yeah.
think it's very important. Our job as leaders is to show people the ways you get through your day and how you lead, so they don't have unrealistic expectations. And so that is the key item for me.
Yeah, when you talked about, balance, I've got my next book coming out next year, and it's just going through the final editing process, and it's on conscious balance. And what I talk about is balance is different for different people, and I talk about these two twins, one who's an investment banker and one who's a teacher.
Yeah.
And they have very different goals, and they're both balanced, even though one has summers off and one barely has holidays off.
Yes.
But they're actually balanced based on their goals.
100%.
And one thing I talk about, when I mentor, emerging leaders is, different seasons in your life demands or require different balance. For instance, when you're 21, 22, 23, it's easier, if you will, to work longer hours, to put in that time to do the grind, because you don't have as many things pulling on your time. And as you get older, you do get more things pulling on you. If you're in the sandwich generation, you might have parents that are getting older that you have to care for, or you're starting a family. And then you have the next season when they start moving on and you're free again. So I talk about, different seasons of your life.
True.
What balance means, if you're starting a company or you've got the company up and running, those are different seasons in an entrepreneur's journey. So let me ask you kind of like one kind of concluding question, because I think this is really going to play extremely well to, our audience that want to be entrepreneurs, know they want to be entrepreneurs, to our audience that is thinking about being an entrepreneur and just wants to listen to somebody who is, whether they're young or old. What's one piece of advice that you would give them that we haven't already talked about, before they kind of jump off and go start that company?
Yeah, I mean, the piece of advice, I think I said it at the beginning, is make sure you have your goals prioritized, and make sure you have that time and action to get those goals accomplished. And if you can't start with that base level, you probably will not be successful at getting your company off the ground. And this can be as simple as you running a face painting company or a crochet company out of your home, to running a $200 million business. It's the same process. You have to take those goals and that passion and develop a checklist and a time and action to hit that final goal. And that is the advice that I stand by. And also, represent yourself and don't try to be someone else like I did at 21. Be proud of where you've come from. And that pride emulates to everyone and makes them want to be with you and wants to work with you.
So Ryan, some of the takeaways I think for our audience are, stay humble.
Yes.
What I just heard was goal-driven entrepreneurship, not just entrepreneurship because you want to be your own boss, but real goal-driven entrepreneurship. Be proud of where you've come from and where you're going. The fact, like the example of your parents, believing, and, one of the sayings I have the courage to fail and the faith to succeed. So, believe that you can do it. And then the last is, have passion for what you're doing, but make sure you also have the operational and process grounding so that your passion doesn't go off the rails. So I think we've got, half a dozen lessons.
Yeah.
For this. And so, to the audience, here's something that I'll challenge all of you with. So I want you to look up and check out RWS Global. And I am willing to bet every single listener today has experienced RWS Global. Myself, when I was at Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi last year, if you've been on a cruise or to a theme park, maybe you've been at some Broadway event, but I am willing to bet that when we all tune into RWS Global, every one of us, because RWS Global had 1 million interactions with people a day. So I am confident that we have probably all interacted in some way. So Ryan, thank you so much for today. Thank you for what you're doing too, because now that I know better when I had seen what you've done, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've actually experienced what you've done.
Yes.
And I also look forward to seeing your future success. But if people want to tap into you, how can they follow you? How can they learn from you? Is there any way to contact you? A podcast or your website or LinkedIn or Instagram?
You can follow me on LinkedIn. Just look up my name, Ryan Stana. I am pretty good at updating. I usually do an update at 8 a.m. every so many weeks on where the business is standing and what's happening. You can also follow me on Instagram at the Ryan Stana. It's my personal account, but I let everyone have a view really into the life of a CEO and the crazy travel and how it's not as luxurious as you might think. So you're welcome to follow me there. And really, I think, thank you for having this podcast. I wish that was around back in 2003 when I started the business. I think it's really important for everyone to learn from one another. And even today, doing this interview with you, I learned about myself and my leadership styles and hearing things that I'm saying to you to put back into my pocket to make sure I'm going up to my office after this and reinvigorating some of those things. So thank you for doing that for us.
All right, Ryan. All right. And thank you to all our viewers and listeners. As always, be fearless, be fast, be bold, and be you. Thank you, Ryan, for today.
Of course. Peace, everyone.
This has been the Fearless Experience with Brendan P. Keegan. If you want to learn to live and lead fearlessly, go to brendanpkeegan.com.